Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the ASTROLABE, brought to you by King Pilled. This episode is sponsored by the King Pilled Discord, kingpilled.com. Go join the finest group of burgeoning elites on the internet. We are networking, folks. We are building our social capital, the most important asset that you can have. I'm actually on time today. I'm on time for when I scheduled it. I'd like to get this back to, I don't think it'll ever be a morning show again necessarily, but I'd like to get it back to at least early afternoon. Just isn't in the cards at the moment, but hopefully soon. End of the week. How's it feel for you guys? I forgot to do my Friday tweet. I'll have to try to remember that after I do the show. I think I forgot it last week. I wonder if I can. I don't think there's a way that you have to like get some sort of extra software program to like schedule a recurring tweet. That should be a very easy thing that we could include on X. Give me the ability to just schedule a tweet at the same time every week in perpetuity. Let's see. What do we got here today? We've got BARRON voice reveal. Got some fun Trump clips, Melania clips. Tucker Carlson interviewed Sergei Lavrov, the foreign minister, the Russian foreign minister, and I've been aware of who he is, and I've seen clips and quotes from him here and there, but this is the first time I've ever sat down and just listened to him talk at length. And we live in a world with a dearth of statesmen, of true classic statesmen, and I don't need to be any kind of Russian sympathizer or anything like that to recognize that he is very clearly a legitimate statesman. It was fascinating listening to him discuss everything from the Russian point of view, and he's very clever. He's a very, very clever guy. You can tell exactly what he's doing. And I have to say, after listening, I texted Pete Quinones last night, and I said I'm 2 minutes and 24 seconds into this interview. I paused it, looked at the time. 2 minutes and 24 seconds into this interview, and I can already say that Tom Luongo is extremely validated. His read of the situation is bang on, or at least his read of the situation is the same as Lavrov's view of the situation. And I suppose you could say it's the same as what Lavrov wants you to think his view of the situation is, because when you're dealing with an actual statesman, there's diplomacy is a very delicate game, and it doesn't necessarily always involve being honest. A form of being honest can be saying, like, giving the impression that you want the other people to take. Like, this is our official position, regardless of what the actual goings on are in our head. This is our actual official position. So anyways, I've got a number of clips from him because I think it's very much worth listening to. Even just he's just very pleasant to listen to. He's got a very pleasant voice, and he's very I think it's a very telling interview, especially the timing of it. Thank you, Amy. Amy reminded me I need to tell you guys a story. So it's a very quick story, but our son is something else, man. I have no idea where he got his brain. He is a unique creature on the planet. So the other night it was after the show. I was down in the living room. We were hanging out watching TV or something. I don't remember exactly. And he is stomping around being Godzilla. And he came over and he wants to climb on me. He's going through a very violent stage. He just kind of wants to be violent all the time. So he goes over to climb on me, and he said, well, actually, I got to back up just a little bit, because a couple of days ago, maybe a week ago, I was sitting in the same chair, kicked back in the recliner, and he was climbing around on me, and I was kind of playing with him, and he just turned and he looked at me and he balled up his fist, and he just bam. Just full out slugged, like just directly into the left one, and just immediate crippling pain. I made weird sounds and staggered across the room, and then bent over and tried not to throw up for a little bit. And then we had to talk to him about certain things that are okay to do and certain things that aren't. So that was the context of it. He comes over and he's climbing around on me, and he's starting to get kind of rowdy. And he's pretending to be Godzilla, and he goes, Daddy, Godzilla is going to have your tecos on toast. And tecos is the way that he pronounces testicles. So my son told me that he was going to have my testicles on toast. Um, I don't know if I'm safe living with him. Like, need to keep one eye open at night while I'm sleeping. This is being a father of a son. I don't know if he's listening to this. Amy's listening, and she may have turned it on so he can hear me talk about him. In which case, love you, Bubba. Anyways, speaking of white boy summer, speaking of dudes being dudes, here we go. Here's a white pill for you. Dudes posting their W's. Dude creates an ugly area into a beautiful landscape. It's very easy to get caught up in all the the narrative, the conversation, spending all of our time focused on political things and whatever new news drop there is. And this is a reminder that there's things closer to home that matter as well.
Honestly, what purpose does this little grass island at my local park serve? I mean, really, it does nothing. So our nonprofit asked if we could replace some of this turf with a lot of native wildflowers. We got a grant from the Pennsylvania Native Plant Society, and we dug out the turf and put in a whole bunch of native plant plugs. And in its first full year, I'm honestly blown away with how well it has done. It's crazy that the same soil that supported this brown patch of grass now supports an incredible mix of native plants that support a ton of cool pollinators, butterflies, bees, native insects that need these plants. One of the highlights for me this year was seeing the golden northern bumblebee for the first time. This is a vulnerable species of native bumblebee, and it was absolutely loving the native penstemons that we planted here. All of the other plants have done so well. We have butterfly and common milkweeds, we have goldenrods and asters, and even some sedges to line the path here. We also installed an educational sign at the garden which teaches people about the importance of native plants, and it also has a QR code which takes them to our website and shows the species that we planted there and where to get local native plants. Overall, I'm so thrilled with how this garden has done, and I hope you guys can do something similar in your community.
Shout out to these guys. This is the way to do it. And leveraging social media this way, getting the QR code on the sign, informing the local community, keeping it beautiful. You know, if I know we have been waylaid with a sustained effort at destroying beauty in our communities. And yes, it is the role of the government, whatever governing institution has a control over a particular domain. Yes, it is their role. It is the responsibility of an effective government to promote this sort of thing, to promote beauty, to promote wholesomeness, to take on projects like this and to do them well. And if the government is not doing that, then it's right to criticize that and to demand that the government do that. But that is not exclusive with simply volunteering to do it yourself. And this can apply to a lot more than just a little garden patch. Although the little garden patch is very important as well. The spiritual effect of something like this in a neighborhood, especially if it's maintained and attracting the wildlife and all that sort of thing, like that's very good. And then you can extend the same mentality out to all these other local projects. Those are if the government's not doing it, it's not like they just can't be done. It's the responsibility of somebody else to step up and to do it. So there's lots of rhetoric. There's lots of rhetoric about how we need to have wholesome, healthy, beautiful communities and we need to have everything functioning properly, and it's the responsibility of our leaders to provide us with these things. But there's the next step. The first step is observing that. The next step is figuring out the ways that you can plug yourself in to begin solving some of these problems, rather than just the libertarian thing is you just sit back and just cry that it exists and demand that somebody make it go away. And but the proper political posture, this is the way you can be political in your daily life. This is a political action. You can be political in this way. And in doing so, you begin to accumulate capital for yourself, even if it's simply just the spiritual capital for having done a good thing. And it's a boon for your soul. A correction, apparently what my son told me exactly was that he is going to pull my tacos off and have them on toast. And the having them on toast thing he got from a David and Goliath book. He has a book of Bible stories that Amy reads him. And in that, they take some artistic liberties with the dialogue in the story. And Goliath tells the army that he's going to have their heads on toast. So that's where he got it, and then he generalized it to he's going to remove my techos and have them on toast. Guerrilla gardening, I like that. That's pretty good branding. Josh Ham says, I'm totally going to till up my pasture and plant native grasses. Government grant will help. My cow's going to munch like the bison of old. Based. Get some bison cows. I was just exposed to something that I didn't know existed, and it for some reason just seems appropriate for the Astrolabe. Really getting into German autism rap right now. I did not know German autism rap was a thing. My life has changed with this knowledge. Ich bin divergent. I will not divergent. Goes hard.
They not like us, not like Autospaß. Ich habe Autospaß, wenn ich in die Audi-Gas muss. Ja, ich muss es haben, muss die Autismus haben, muss Autimuskeln pumpen, Autimuskeln pumpen. Ja, ich bin divergent. Ich hab diverse chicks, I will not divergent. Vor die Autismus, vor mein Autismus. Elon Musk Money, ich hab die Autistfluss. Autist, das sind mein Pronouns. If you can pronounce, dann bist du ein Pronoun. Duisburg, all we know is Red Rum. Eiskalt, das ist Lobby und der Spektrum. Autismus, Autismus, Autismus. Ich hab Autismus, du hast Autismus. Autismus, Autismus, Autismus. Autismus, das ist Autismus.
I mean, I don't know. Where do you guys rate this? Is this there's a soccer personality that every time there's a new soccer jersey that drops internationally, he quote tweets it and he says dripping or tripping. And I don't know. What do you think here? Is this dripping or tripping? And actually, in this case, I didn't even know if that would which one would be good, which one would be bad. We've entered the land of meaninglessness. Josh Shams is going to show my boss this video tomorrow and explain this was my boys this video tomorrow and explain this was high school in the late 90s. Tobias says, as a German, I reluctantly approve. All right, we've gotten the German stamp of approval. German autism rap. Where does this come from? Is there what sort of subculture produces something like this? It's hitting, talking about Elon Musk and autism rap and like, are these like German anons? These base German anons? Are they just like schizo shit posters? What is this world? I didn't realize this world existed, and I have so many questions. Does anybody know where German autism rap comes from? Clarence Thomas, man, we're going to miss him when he's gone. So there's this case with the Supreme Court with the ACLU talking about the transgender subjects. And Justice Thomas sprung a killer question on the ACLU lawyer. What remedy are you seeking? Now, I didn't actually watch or listen to this thing that happened, but I'm reminded of the graph that someone showed a while back of the statements made in a particular setting by all the different Supreme Court justices, and it was like words spoken over the course of a period of time. And Jumanji Jackson, I can't remember what her name is. It's just like Jumanji something or other. She had like 11,000 words spoken over this brief period of time. Clarence Thomas had 92. So I'm imagining him just sitting here quietly, just staring. He's got the android brain cranking away, and then he just speaks up and asks one question. What remedy are you seeking? Strangio, of course the ACLU lawyer's name is Strangio, flummoxed by such a seemingly simple question, said an injunction. Justice Thomas then asked, practically, you would get different treatment based on sex? And the trap was laid. Strangio said the plaintiff, a girl who identifies as a boy, would be allowed to get drugs for atypical male puberty, despite having a, quote, birth sex of female. That answer made clear that girls who identify as boys would get a right under the Constitution to testosterone, but boys who identify as boys would not, which is sex discrimination. Genius. And would Ben Braddock say, logic trapped him? If you come at the king, you best not miss. Argula King. And friend of the show, Josh Rayner, says, either boys get state-sponsored roids or no more trans kids. What a winner by Thomas. I really hope, I mean, I shouldn't doubt him. Why would I ever doubt him? But I really, really hope that he has his replacement already handpicked and groomed, because the day that he leaves the bench is I'm going to get real nervous for a while until whoever replaces him is proven. Continuing the line of kings here, a Florida man shot at a Walmart delivery drone with a pistol, and then I don't want to spoil it for you. Listen to this old dude.
At some point today, did a drone fly over your house and you shoot at it? I'm gonna be real blunt with you and ask.
Yeah.
You did?
Yeah.
Okay, why'd you shoot at it?
Because I thought it was somebody and turned around playing games on my house.
I got you. Where did you see the drone at?
Right above me.
What, can you walk out and just kind of show me?
Right there.
Sitting straight above it?
Straight above me.
Do you have any idea?
Hovered, lowered some kind of cord down or something, turned around and sent something back up, and then after it was shot at, it turned around and went north.
Gotcha. Okay. What'd you shoot at it with?
Got to point out, it turned around and went north. It didn't turn around and go that way. It didn't turn around and go towards such and such a direction, whatever city or location, whatever. Turned around and went north. This is, as we revive not revive the spirit of the boomers, but as we redeemed the boomers, remind ourselves of all the good things about them. You're not going to hear a lot of non-boomers that talk this way anymore. The ones you will get, I hear a lot of even millennial military guys who think in terms of north, south, east, west, and they constantly have an awareness of which direction is north, south, east, and west. It's something I've always had. I'm very good with directions, because anytime we're driving anywhere, like if I drive off to some place, my brain is just kind of mapping passively where we're going, and then I just have to reverse course, and I can literally see the map of what I'm driving on in my head. So it's something that's very natural for me, but I know a lot of people it's not natural for them, and it's a skill that hasn't been cultivated. Nobody needs to know. It's just like, the Google Maps will tell me which way I need to go. And I use Google Maps always, like whenever I'm driving, because I have Apple CarPlay now, I always have Google Maps up, which I generally use mostly for traffic, actually. But actually using Google Maps for me makes it even easier, because now I'm constantly viewing all of the surroundings and where everything is in relationship to everything else, and so I track it really well. But this is a lost skill among a lot of the younger generations. So there's a lot of things that we need to get from the boomers before they go, and not in terms of we need to go plunder them. I mean, I guess as long as we get it, be kind to them. But this is some of the knowledge. It's a simple thing, but it's some of the knowledge that we need to plunder from the boomers before they're gone.
9mm.
Okay. All right.
How much trouble am I in?
Quite a bit. You've been honest with me. I'm gonna be honest with you. Quite a bit, actually. So there's a federal charge that goes along with it. There's a felony charge that goes along with it. That's kind of where we're at.
Okay.
Okay.
What happens and what?
Well, before we continue this conversation, I'm really just, for you being honest, you really just took me off guard. I'm not
what am I going to do? I'm going to lie?
True. All right, sir. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say
You're putting me under arrest.
I'm just going to arrange the Miranda warning just so I can get out. That way you and I can continue our conversation, okay?
I understand the Miranda warning. I don't have to speak to you unless I want an attorney, okay?
I got you. Let me just read you this real quick, and then we'll go from there, okay? You have the right to remain silent? Go ahead, sir. 26. I'm already talking to him. All right, sir. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to talk to a lawyer and have him or her present with you while you're being questioned. If you cannot afford to hire a lawyer, one will be appointed to represent you before any questioning if you wish. If you want to head out underneath it, get out the rain. You can decide at any time to exercise these rights and not answer any questions or make any statements. If you understand each of these rights I've explained to you, having these rights in mind, you would talk to us now.
Yes, I understand my rights.
Yeah, I got you. So, it was hovering above your house. It lowered something down.
No, it just hovered above my house.
You said something about a pulley system.
A cord or something. It stayed there for about 10 minutes. Mm-hmm. And yes, I shot at it. Okay.
I got you.
And
my wife says, never talk to the police. Boomers are far too trusting. Yeah, and this is one of the things I wanted to, I think this story illustrates, is he has the just sort of innate sense. Like, he's just an honest dude. He's also like, he's like 80. So it seems like he's one of those guys that's like, whatever's going to happen to me is going to happen to me. I've lived my long life, and I'm just going to just take life as it comes. Whatever. All right, am I in trouble? Okay, cool. Here, take me away. But latent in that, I think, is the sense that he's like, well, what I did, if it was illegal, it's not that illegal. It's not that egregious. Like, there's a freaking drone flying over my house. I don't know what that I don't know what it's doing. Especially like some 80-year-old dude, some drone starts flying over his property and it just hangs out above his property for 10 minutes. He's gonna be like, yeah, get that shit off my property. I'm defending my property, which is legally speaking is there's actually, I think, a lot of weight to that. It depends on all the other things that he says here, to the extent to which if he indicates that he doesn't think it was a threat, then he'd kind of own his own defense. But this is an actual legitimate shortcoming in the law right now. The law has never been written or prosecuted with the understanding that we're going to live in a world where drones will just be flying over your property all the time. You know, Amazon delivery drones or whatever. So, like, if someone's got a drone flying above my house, I've been listening to what's going on in the Ukraine. Are they gonna like drop a grenade on my head? Are they scouting out my property to go to come raid it later on when I'm not home? Are they spying on me? Are they listening to what I'm saying, or like mapping my body, or like there's all sorts of different things they could be doing. So if some drone just comes and hangs out above your property for 10 minutes and is just hovering there, then yeah, I don't think shooting it is unreasonable at all. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how this pans out. The problem for him is that the federal charge is in here because of firing at an aircraft. It brings in the FAA, and so yeah, I think he's probably going to get railroaded. And it's not going to be like some personal grudge match against him. It's just going to be, yep, this is what the law says. Yep, you fired a gun in the middle of a residential neighborhood. You damaged somebody else's property, whatever. And it's not like there's a bunch of legal precedent to necessarily establish that he's defending his property, that this is like a valid defense of property. That would be my guess. I haven't gone and completely researched all the case law for it, but this is a relatively new thing. The idea that you'd have a drone that's just hovering over you. If it's like a commercial drone, well, Amazon has the expectation that, like, I'm going to send my drone out and I'm going to go deliver packages and it's not going to get shot at in the process. I don't know if I don't think it was an Amazon drone, but there's actually there's not like a direct, super easy solution or answer here on either side. This is something that's going to have to get hammered out. And right now, the people who are running point on hammering these sorts of things out they're either not competent, not good faith, or not competent and not good faith. So, yeah, I think some of these things are going to change. It's starting to hit the public consciousness that the competency crisis is a real thing and it's infiltrated the government and anything affiliated with the government. So I think it's going to change, but some of these things just can't change immediately. You know, people have to like the practice of law. You can change some things by diktat, but some of it just has to be emergent over the course of 20, 30, 40, 50 years. So anyways, let me keep playing the rest of the video here because he's pretty funny. He's pretty good natured about the whole thing.
the cord went up. It turned because it was facing east.
Okay.
Because that's east, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was working on my pool equipment.
Oh, you were outside when you noticed it?
Oh, I was working on my pool equipment.
Gotcha.
Waved it off and everything. Never left. I went inside, went into the safe, got the weapon, came out, tried to shoot it off again. It didn't move. I fired one round at it. Now they say I hit it, so I must be a good shot. Although it's not that far away. So I'm under all sorts of. They say there's $10,000 worth of damage to the drone and all sorts of stuff. So I'm going to wind up having to find a real good defense lawyer.
You want coffee in the front?
Whatever you need to do by protocol.
Well, no, we have.
You've been fine. There's no issues. We're not,
Yeah.
Just let me know if it's too tight, all right?
I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
Cops weren't impressed. Watch the cop's face when he says it.
We're not,
Yeah.
Just let me know if it's too tight, all right?
I can't breathe. I can't breathe. I can't breathe.
Based old boomer. 72-year-old Dennis Wynn shot at a Walmart. It was a Walmart drone with his 9mm
At some
after
point
it
today,
flew over his
the-
property. He said he had issues in his neighborhood with people flying drones over his house. The Lake County Sheriff's Office say they found a bullet hole in the payload the drone was carrying. He was charged with shooting at an aircraft, criminal mischief damage over $1,000, and discharging a firearm in public. So I think these could be relatively easily sorted, but the shooting at an aircraft one is I think he's going to get run through the meat grinder on that. So speaking of the meat grinder, there's been an update on the Daniel Penny case, and I know a lot of people saw this as a good thing. So there's two charges or two counts that he's being charged with. One is manslaughter, and then the other one is criminal negligent homicide. So manslaughter is count number one, and it's the big one. But criminal negligent homicide, I think, is still it's like at least 5 years in jail or something. There's still pretty significant punishment for it. So what was announced this afternoon is that there's a hung jury. So the jury is hung. They can't get a unanimous verdict one way or the other. And so the first count, the manslaughter count, was dismissed. So everyone saw the headlines and they said, "Oh, this is fantastic, great. The charge has been dismissed." But his defense was actually arguing against having it dismissed. And here's why. So Greg Price says what Daphne Yoren is doing to Daniel Penny is nuts and absolutely illegal. And multiple different lawyers, even ones who are not necessarily super ideologically inclined to support this, they're not, just kind of normie people. I saw a number of different lawyers who were all saying there is no precedent for this whatsoever, and it may even be just flatly illegal. So here's why. So she moved to dismiss count one, manslaughter, because count two, criminal negligent homicide, couldn't be considered if there was a verdict. So based on the jury instructions, which I'll read you here in just a sec, if there was a verdict returned on count one, then count two would not be considered at all. So if the verdict returned on count one was a hung jury, then there would be no consideration of this count. It would go away. It says they're bending the law to try to squeeze a guilty verdict for somebody who saved people on a train. So here's the quote of what happened here. So ADA Yoren, don't tell them it's an acquittal on count one, only that it's dismissed. Penny's lawyer says this has never been done before. It would encourage prosecutors to overcharge in the grand jury with the option of withdrawing if hung under coercion. Judge Wiley says, I'll take a chance and grant the people's application. I'm going to let them go to return and consider count two on Monday. Bring them in, jury entering. Judge says to the jury, manslaughter in the second degree is dismissed. You are free to consider count two on Monday. Here's what the jury instructions were. For count number one, manslaughter in the second degree, if you find the defendant guilty of count one, manslaughter in the second degree, then do not consider and do not render a verdict on count two, criminally negligent homicide. So if you find him guilty of count one, don't consider count two at all. If you find the defendant not guilty of count 1, manslaughter in the second degree, for the reason that the people have failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant was not justified, then you must not consider count 2, criminal negligent homicide, and you must also find the defendant not guilty of that count. So, if you return the verdict that he is guilty of count 1, ignore count 2. If you return not guilty of count 1 on account that the people have failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that the defendant was not justified, then you may not consider count 2, and you must find him not guilty of that count. So count 2 is going to automatically track with the result of count 1. If you find the defendant not guilty of count 1, manslaughter in the second degree, for some reason other than the lack of justification, then proceed to consider and render a verdict on count 2, criminally negligent homicide. So, they returned hung. So they did not find the defendant guilty of count 1. They did not find him not guilty on account that the people have failed to prove beyond a reasonable doubt that he was not justified. And they didn't find him not guilty for some other reason. So my understanding is that this means it's a mistrial. But at the very least, it does not mean you now just dismiss that charge and run down to the next one. There's no legal precedent for this whatsoever that anybody has demonstrated. And the defense was saying this explicitly. They're like, if this was something that you could, if this was like a natural course of law, then you could just always super overcharge someone with the expectation that if it doesn't work out, then just fall back to the second charge. So they're going to be going back to, this is insane. It literally encourages overcharging defendants with the knowledge that you can just drop charges if they don't stick. The New York City justice system is so far gone. The judge and prosecution are pushing the jury towards a compromised verdict. This is usually considered misconduct. In this case, it would pass because the judge took the top charge off the table. This is evil. In all federal cases and the majority of state cases, a jury verdict must be unanimous to be actionable. If the jury fails to reach a unanimous decision, a scenario known as a hung jury, the case will usually result in a mistrial. A compromise verdict is typically either a quid pro quo exchange or an agreement to meet in the middle. In the former, one group of jurors may agree to vote that the defendant is liable in exchange for the other group agreeing to set the monetary damages low. In the latter, jury members who believe the defendant is completely innocent and jury members who believe the defendant is guilty of murder may agree to find the defendant guilty of manslaughter, a lesser crime. So the judge and the prosecution are trying to corner the jury into doing this. It's just flagrantly corrupt, which isn't a surprise, obviously, for New York City. And honestly, if they do come back on Monday and they do find him guilty, especially if this narrative can be set over the weekend, then I don't think it's going to work out for them very well. This is not going to be a win. There's people coming out all over the place in defense of Daniel Penny. Think about this, like Daniel Penny, they're trying to run the same game on him as they did with Kavanaugh, or as they did with Kyle Rittenhouse, or as they've done with any of these guys. The Covington Catholic kid. They're running the same game on him. And the intent with this type of thing is to produce the impression to the vast public that you cannot support this guy or anybody like him in any way. If you are someone like this, you are an enemy, you are evil, you must be run down and abused in whatever way we see fit. For a while, people just kind of went along with that because they were like, well, I mean, the media is not a bunch of completely corrupt lunatics, are they? I mean, they would have to be totally just off their rocker to behave this way. But the more that they do it, the more obvious it becomes that they are, in fact, off their rocker. So now you've even got Phil Mickelson coming out. Says, agree. Thank you, Daniel, for serving your country and for protecting the many passengers whose lives were threatened by this violent and deranged individual. And this is from Colin Rugg. Daniel Penny is a model citizen who should be praised by the city of New York. He's a breed of young men who are becoming less and less common. He puts his own safety at risk to help others. He didn't cower or pull out his phone to film, and Jordan Neely started threatening to kill people. Instead, he took it upon himself to protect subway passengers. He was praised by the passengers on the train, but was ridiculed by the city of New York. He is the citizen that every mayor of every city should want more of. This is exactly what the actual mayor of New York City just said the other day. He is the person you hope is around if your loved ones' lives are being threatened. Anyone who's quiet about this injustice lacks moral clarity and should take a long look in the mirror. Daniel Penny is a hero. And here's an interview with him.
East Village in Manhattan, so I take the subway multiple times a day. In this instance, I was coming from school. I got out of class around 2:15, and I took I was at J Street Metro Tech, took the Uptown F train. At 2nd Avenue, a man came on, stumbled on. He appeared to be on drugs. The doors closed, and he ripped his jacket off and threw it at the people sitting down to my left. I was listening to music at the time, and he was yelling, so I took my headphones out to hear what he was yelling. And the three main threats that he repeated over and over was, "I'm going to kill you, I'm prepared to go to jail for life, and I'm willing to die." You know, this was a scary situation, and Mr. Neely came on. He was threatening. I'm 6'2", and he was taller than me, so it was, and there.
So he's 6'3" or taller. Gets on, says he's going to kill everyone. He's not afraid to go to jail. And then like nobody has disputed any of these facts. This has been like nobody disputes these things. It's just that, you know, he was he had no right to kill him. It was not reasonable to kill him, and it was racially motivated. The prosecutor has called him the white man throughout the entire process of the case. It's very obvious what they're doing. It's so obvious that even people like Phil Mickelson are now weighing in on it.
There's a common misconception that Marines don't get scared. We're actually taught one of our core values is courage. And courage is not the absence of fear, but how you handle fear. And, you know, I was scared for myself, but I looked around, I saw women and children. He was yelling in their faces, saying these threats. I couldn't just sit still. Some people say that I was holding on to Mr. Neely for 15 minutes. This is not true. I mean, between stops is only a couple minutes. So the whole interaction lasted less than 5 minutes. Some people say I was trying to choke him to death, which is also not true. I was trying to restrain him. You can see in the video, there's a clear rise and fall of his chest, indicating that he's breathing. I'm trying to restrain him from him being able to carry out the threats. And then some people say that this was about race, which is absolutely ridiculous. I didn't see a black man threatening passengers. I saw a man threatening passengers, a lot of whom were people of color. The man who helped restrain Mr. Neely was a person of color. And then a few days after the incident, I read in the papers that a woman of color came out and called me a hero. I don't believe that I'm a hero, but she was one of those people that I was trying to protect. We were all scared. Mr. Neely was yelling in these passengers' faces, and they looked terrified. The reason why there was no video at the start of the altercation was because people were too afraid getting away from him, and the videos didn't start until they saw that situation was under control. I knew I had to act, and I acted in a way that would protect the other passengers, protect myself, and protect Mr. Neely. I used this hold to restrain him, and I did this by leaving my hand on top of his head to control his body. You can see in the video there's a clear rise and fall of his chest, indicating that he was still breathing. And I'm calibrating my grip based on the force that he's exerting. And I was trying to keep him on the ground until the police came. I was praying that the police would come and take this situation over. I didn't want to be put in that situation, but I couldn't just sit still and let him carry out these threats.
Yeah, I wonder if, in a sane world, the way he's describing this whole thing in like extreme detail, like he's remembers details about this that show that he was very clearly like in possession of his wits, and is actually recounting something that happened. He's talking about how he was watching his chest rising and falling and calibrating his grip accordingly. Now, in a sane world, I see that and I'm like, okay, this is like very obviously even that he would think of something to say, like he would say that in the first place. Like this indicates this is a very competent, dependable, trustworthy person who was acting prudently. But in clown world, then the way that I would expect the subhuman filth that's prosecuting him to take that as evidence that, well, he was completely in control. This is him incriminating himself because he's saying he was completely in control and so he killed him. And he didn't act, he was still alive when the cops got there. And the cops chose not to provide medical aid to him because they didn't want to get an STD from him. I think he was HIV positive and they didn't want to get HIV. And that's what he looked like. That's the type of person we were talking about here. But he was still alive. He was still breathing. Until I don't remember the details. I think it was like well after he let go of him. So the whole thing is just a complete farce. And it's one of those things that's such a complete farce that you don't have to be a real political partisan to recognize what's happening, which just lends a whole bunch of validity to all the people who may have sounded crazy before when they say that there's like a racially, a two-tiered system of justice being formed and implemented. That these people are racially motivated against white people. That is suddenly not really all that difficult of a case to make to people. So here's what Kate just tagged me in this. I hadn't seen this tweet. This is what old Chuck Dirk has to say. And remember, Chuck, you may have some preconceptions about Chuck Dirk, and I'm telling you, you need to get rid of him. He is not at all what I'm going to say. He's not at all what I perceived him to be, what he used to be. I don't know if he's changed or if I changed, but he is not at all what he once was. He is a very well-connected political operative with a very good head on his shoulders, very wise, close friends with Tucker Carlson, and a core member of the inner circle for Trump. He says, if Daniel Penny spends a day in prison, then the Trump DOJ should launch an immediate investigation of the New York justice system, just like the investigations Obama weaponized against big city police departments. Yes. Immediately cut off the $3.4 billion federal grant going to the MTA and all other federal funds. No taxpayer dollars should subsidize transit systems that let criminals terrorize the innocent. Similarly, cut off any federal funds going to New York's courts or prison systems. Issue a blanket ban against hiring New York prosecutors into federal positions. Corrupt, rogue, and evil people who won't respond to reason will respond to pain. Yes. Now we're talking. And if Charlie Kirk is saying this, I don't care what you think of Charlie Kirk. If Charlie Kirk is talking this way, he's representing, by definition, he's representing the perspective of someone in Trump's inner circle. And when he posts something like this, like if he was just trying to get a message to the Trump administration, then he could literally just like send this as a text. He basically is part of the Trump administration. The reason he's posting this is because there is legitimate political will for something like this. But this is part of focusing and enhancing and directing that will. Kate says, I think Hochul could play ball and pardon him if Trump threatens this himself. Yeah, and I think that probably would happen. I think we're going to see the signals that Hochul and Adams are sending. I think we're going to see New York State starting to become more obsequious to the Trump administration. And so I think we'll probably get some surprising things out of that state, things that happen that are prompted or facilitated by people that we wouldn't expect, like Eric Adams and Kathy Hochul. So this is Sean Hendricks. I don't really know who this guy is. Official Mr. Beast expert survival dad. Follow for disaster relief, survival, and homesteading. Click link below to help Western North Carolina. I've seen a couple of tweets from him regarding helping out with North Carolina. But this one was going around earlier today. And he says, thank you to JD Vance for reaching out. I'm blown away at the detail and understanding they have of the situation. They ask the right questions and are looking for solutions, not photo ops. Looking forward to continuing to be part of the solution.
So, I posted an hour ago, hey JD Vance, we got a lot of stuff happening up here, love to talk to you. And within minutes, you guys got his attention. He reached out to me, and I just spent a half hour on the phone with his team. It's a little crazy to me that this is the first in-depth conversation I've had with a politician about this event after, 8 weeks now? I've talked to senators on the ground, at the airfields, at the airport as I see them, but a sit down with a team to actually dissect how we can fix the problem. And that's what we talked about mostly, is like I always say, if the rules are hurting people, we change the rules. And we basically talked about what rules need to change in FEMA to actually get the help people need. Like I said, if we have the money to buy people's land, to give it away to green zones, then we have the money to pay people to rebuild their houses. Actually, rebuilding a house is cheaper than purchasing the land. The land's usually the expensive part. And we talked about how the flood zone rule makes no sense, especially up here in the mountains where we're not going to see another flood until next hurricane season in the worst case scenario. But yeah, they were really on it and cared about understanding what I had seen up there. I just can't believe that I'm talking to the freaking next vice president of the United States of America about how to fix this versus local senators, local representatives for the state level, and even like county commissioners. No one's called me. No one's picked up the phone and said, hey, what are you seeing out there? Except the new vice president of the United States of America. A little wild. It just shows you, though, why you need to get involved in your local and state elections. I think 2026 is our next round of voting. I think March, you can start getting into your local political agency. I don't know anything about this stuff. I'm going to find out because I'm definitely going to get involved. And I think there needs to be happens a lot of education on how to get involved. And I think I'm going to start posting about that going into next year. But anyhow, thank you, JD Vance. Thank you to your team. Your team is amazing, by the way. You've got some absolute monsters helping you run this thing. So they were super intelligent, asked the right questions, and I could tell they care about the American people. And that's something we need more of. So thank you again.
I love everything about this story. So he's some guy he's appeared on Mr. Beast. Like, that's been his claim to fame in the past. So he's not someone that I would instinctively hold in high regard at the outset. But now he's really become known for working with the Western North Carolina recovery effort, which my absolute hats off to him. I will say real quick that if you want to get involved, get in contact with the OGC, especially Melon the Giraffe on Twitter. Shoot him a DM. Get involved with there. We've got Jonathan from the King Pill Discord says, I'll be back in Western North Carolina tomorrow for the weekend helping a farmer rebuild a bridge so he can move his cattle across a valley for the winter. There is so much work that still needs to be done over there. They need funding. They need manpower. They need connections. So it's really, really good to see that this guy tags JD Vance on Twitter, and immediately within minutes they get in touch with him, and JD gets on the phone and talks to him. Like, these are people who are taking their job seriously. Like, he says he comes away with the takeaway that they very clearly are, like, they want America. It's like such a low threshold to get across. They love America and want America to be successful and want to do their job to serve Americans. Imagine that. So I would put this guy, if he's like survival expert guy on Mr. Beast, I would put him as kind of normie. Maybe slightly right-leaning normie, but not a guy who's necessarily going to be instinctually pro-Trump, pro-MAGA, like to have that view of the future. So seeing the Trump administration looping in these kinds of people and seeing their takeaway where they're like, holy shit, like these are real people. There's nothing more discrediting of the whole media narrative, the whole blob, censorship, CIA, NSA, Atlantic Council, all of these people. There's nothing that's more discrediting to them than members of the Trump administration acting in ways like this. Like, if you want an end to the Ukraine war, this is pushing in that direction. Because the Ukraine war exists as an extension of the entire regime's tendrils plunged into all these different aspects of the world. So the media, the censorship, the NGOs, the nonprofits, all these different organizations that are facilitating all of this are not per se military organizations, but it's all part of the same broad, fundamentally military strategy, which is keep Americans pacified and deceived and at war with one another, distracted on all these issues, which allows us to maintain the grift and funnel all the dollars over there that we possibly can as quickly as we possibly can, which are what facilitate all the operations. If that flow of dollars gets cut off, and in fact it turns around and comes the other direction, all the dollars are coming back into the United States, that's as good as a military strategy. This is a big white pill to me. Got a couple super chats here, so let me just got $10 with no message. Just $10. Thank you, man. Matt Grider. And then let me scroll back up here. Forgot to hit these when they came across. Alexander M, $5, says, on my way to Paris development meeting, God bless. Thank you for being a piece of my path to orthodoxy and being involved in the church. Well, glory to God, man. Thank you. Thank you for the $5. And it's good to hear. I like getting those kinds of messages. And then 5 leaf bucks from friend of the show, Slosher. Heard too many self-defense lawyers on YouTube talk about guys who were in the right but went to prison because they accidentally said the wrong thing. Yeah, that was exactly the same sort of thing I was thinking of. You could be entirely in the right, but if you've got a corrupt, racially motivated ethnic gremlin of a prosecutor, then they are more than happy to twist anything that you say. So more on the J.D. Vance in Western North Carolina. J.D. Vance says as soon as he and Trump assume office, the residents of Western North Carolina impacted by hurricane damage will get relief they're not receiving from the Biden administration. So this is him at a press conference after being down there. And I believe this is Tom Tillis next to him.
Things you want people in this area to see.
Hold on, volume's low, I can tell. Let me pull that up. Let me know if the sound is good.
Things you want people in this area to see change under your administration that starts in January.
Well, I think, one, hopefully it doesn't take 45 days for this to happen. But as I mentioned earlier, Tom and Ted have explicitly asked the Biden administration to grant the FEMA waiver that would allow mobile homes to come back to this area, that would actually give people some short and maybe some medium-term housing. I mean, Tom and Ted are welcome to talk about that if they want to say more. I hope it doesn't take 45 days, but if, God forbid, it takes 45 days, that's something that is going to change immediately under President Trump's leadership. Think about it. The argument here is that you can't allow people to put mobile homes in a floodplain, in an area that has the risk of flood damage. Well, that's pretty much this entire area, an area of the state of Massachusetts. If you don't grant a waiver, you're effectively telling people they've got to move hundreds of miles away and do it 2 weeks before Christmas. It's ridiculous, it's atrocious, and we need a government that responds quickly to the needs of its citizens. So much of the frustration at FEMA, at everybody else, it's not malice. I don't believe that the officials of the Biden administration are intentionally doing bad things, but it's bureaucratic red tape, it's slowness, it's a bureaucracy that is moving at the speed of a glacier when what you need is people to respond to the concerns of the people of Western North Carolina.
I saw a couple people who were taking issue with him saying that I think this is incompetence, not malice. And to those of you saying that, I think you need to shut up. Because, again, I don't care what he actually thinks in his head. That's kind of irrelevant to me. I think he's based on other comments that he's made, I think he's fully aware that there's malice present in all of this. But as a representative of the administration, it's one thing to be a Republican senator or a private figure or someone who's running for the nomination. It's one thing to be someone like that. Now, as the elected vice president, the goal should be to come in and root out the bad things. Now, saying this is a product of explicit malice doesn't make it easier to root out the bad things. If anything, it's going to make it harder. Saying this is simply a matter of bureaucratic incompetence, this is the ostensible reason that's given. This is a matter of bureaucratic incompetence. No one needs to get all freaked out or anything. We just need to get some paperwork cleared up and kind of streamline the chain of command. Just make sure everything runs more efficiently. Like efficiency is becoming the watchword of the administration. Everything is efficiency. We need to do everything more efficiently because we need growth. The only way out is going to be to grow our way out. So we're focused on eliminating hurdles to growth. Now, the dark side of that is that can mean that the government becomes more efficient at doing evil things. That's the potential downside. But that doesn't change the fact that very many good things can be accomplished through efficiency. And so if eliminating a bunch of racially motivated regulations and processes, things that were conceived of and implemented out of malice, if you can wipe those away simply under an argument of efficiency, we just need to do things more efficiently. We need to get shit done. We're not here to get engaged in petty political squabbles. We're here to get shit done. So if you're here to get shit done, we'll work with you. If you're not, get the hell out of the way and let us cook. This is exactly the messaging that is necessary. There's nothing to be gained apart from pacifying some resentful little spurgs on Twitter. There's nothing to be gained by coming out and saying this is explicitly motivated by malice and hate and we need to go on a witch hunt and purge all the Democrats out of it or whatever. Like, there's nothing to be gained by that. Apart from, like, some useless people on Twitter might be pacified. But they're just got to find something else to complain about. So I think this is very good messaging. Got some wombat bucks. 10 wombat bucks. From Jason, he says the line between justice and vengeance is now razor thin. Indeed. I suspect that we're going to discuss that at length in our conversation next week, revisiting the idea of Trump being installed. Keep an eye out for that. Also, I'm going to be doing a stream tonight. I don't know exactly the details of it just yet. It'll be later tonight, maybe 9 or 10 p.m. Central. But rumor has it that there will be some Halo involved. So keep an eye out. Follow me on Twitter at RealKingPilled. Keep an eye out for that. All right. Quick little news point here. This is very interesting. Ignore these numbers down here, the dates. I think he got them one election cycle off. But this is Beverly Hills, California. In 2016, it went 63.8% to Clinton, 32.6% to Trump. So what is that? I see what he's... So, yeah, plus, this is supposed to be 2016. So plus 31.2% blue. 2016, it was plus 11.2% blue. That was 2020, actually. So this is 2016. This is 2020. 2024, Beverly Hills went to Trump. Trump was plus 4.8 in Beverly Hills. I saw another one. There was another a little district or something in the Bay Area. I lost the tweet. It refreshed while I was trying to read it, and I lost the tweet. But there's a district in the Bay Area that went to Trump as well. This is pretty crazy. I've been in Beverly Hills. I've been around there. I know what it's like there. The idea that it didn't just like narrowly squeak by. 51.4% is just a pretty healthy margin. So don't write off California just yet. More leaf bucks. Slosher, 10 more, says that's the messaging the left has used for decades. We aren't being political. We're just doing the right thing. This is the way. We just define everything. We just define everything that we want correct, non-political thing. Yes, right. You're not doing politics. You're just governing effectively, governing efficiently. No, leave the politics aside. We don't engage in politics. We just do the right thing. Exactly. Yes, I do want California to be a thing. Okay, so there was this DOGE meeting yesterday, and actually, I just remembered that I had another tweet that I saved that belongs here. Let me pull that up real quick. Nope, not that one. I saved too many. Okay, here we go. I'm not going to read this whole thread, but I want to get this image. Okay. Share, Molly Hemingway. So according to multiple sources at yesterday's DOGE meeting with House Republicans and a handful of senators, nearly everyone got up to speak about how awesome it would be to tackle government waste. Members were eager to jump on the new government efficiency bandwagon, even the swampiest of swamp creatures. At the end, Chip Roy from Texas apparently got up and told everyone that it sounded great, but that it was time to be honest with themselves. That 2/3 of the room, including many of the speakers, had voted for all the omnibuses and continuing resolutions and supplementals that created the completely out of control bureaucracy that is harming the country. He said they'd met the enemy, and it was right there in the auditorium. And they all should collectively acknowledge the problem and agree they were not going to do that kind of thing anymore. Very, very interesting. So you've got a Republican standing up and telling House Republicans and a handful of senators, you guys come in here and you talk a big game. Oh, yeah, DOGE, let's, tackle government waste. You know who's responsible for government waste? We are. We're the ones who are going to have to do this. And so, let's see here. Nope, don't want that one just yet. I want this one. Here is commentary from Tim Burchett, who is a congressman from Tennessee. He says, just left the DOGE meeting with Elon Musk and Vivek, and it's clear to me that the problem is going to be the members in that room. And there's a cameo by Chip Roy in here.
Hey everybody, Tim Burchett, just leaving the DOGE meeting with Elon and Vivek Ramaswamy, and I think the key to the whole thing is going to be, the key to the whole thing is in that room. If Congress doesn't have the guts to do those things that they're talking real big about, it's just a waste of time. They'll do away with executive orders and unelected bureaucrats who put rules and regulations on us. But if Congress doesn't have the guts, and that's what scares me, I vote against a lot of stuff. There'll be 15 or so red dots on the board, which means we voted against horrible spending, and there'll be about 400 green lights on the board, and that's going to be the problem. My friend Chip Roy is right here. Chip,
hey, how are you?
Knox, East Tennessee.
Great Americans?
I was just telling them that the problem's in that room.
That's what I just said.
Yeah, 100%, and that we've got to have the guts to pull the trigger on
our
this
friends
stuff.
Elon and Vivek can do a good job exposing it, but then we got to actually do our job. So I hope they do it, and then we'll have to hold our colleagues accountable.
Right on.
See you, brother.
Amen. Thank y'all. Thank y'all for sitting here.
I like that we live in this world now where a congressman gets out of a meeting there and then immediately goes live or records a video of himself walking and talking on his recording himself talking on his phone. So an interesting admission here, or an interesting revelation from Jesse Waters talking about this whole issue. He makes a very interesting point here right at the end.
Elon, Vivek, a.k.a. Doge, they're getting ready to take a blowtorch to the orgies and the work-from-homers. And good luck getting AOC's anti-racist oyster refunded again. You're just going to have to eat racist oysters. I'm sorry. Even daylight savings time might not make it. They say it's inefficient. And if they're targeting anything inefficient, the government better watch out. Nothing is safe. K Street's panicking. Lobbyists are trying to get a hold of Elon, but they don't know how to reach him. So they're trying to book themselves on Rogan. And Joe's like, who are you again? No. Elon.
What a very interesting thing to say. I feel like, so he says, K Street is panicking. Lobbyists are trying to get a hold of Elon, but they don't know how to reach him. So they're trying to book themselves on Rogan. That's a very specific claim that I can't imagine Jesse Waters would make if it wasn't like, he's not just going to make that up. It's a very specific thing to say, and so I would assume that it's true. They're trying to get a hold of Elon. They can't get a hold of him. They're like, oh, I'm imagining him like on calls. I can't get a hold of him. He won't answer my calls. I keep getting his secretary. What do we do? I don't know. Can you get on Rogan? Imagine Rogan's like, what? You're a lobbyist? You want to come hawk your shit on my show just so you can get a hold of Elon? Yeah, no. So even if this is partially true, even if it's just been a couple, I think it points to, number one, Elon's state of mind. Elon's in business mode. He's not interested in debating with lobbyists. And it shows the state of mind of the lobbyists and the perception on K Street and Capitol Hill as to the actual potential destructiveness of the Doge to their ends. So I know there's a lot of guys in our circle who are very skeptical about the Doge, and I understand that. You know, it's not an official government agency, but I don't know. The people who are targeted by it sure seem awful concerned. The people who stand to lose the most, if the Doge was to actually do, at least some of what they're claiming to do, all those people are sure pretty worked up. They're pretty worried. They're not just like, oh yeah, it doesn't have any weight. They can advise all they want, but it doesn't. We have the force of law. Whatever. They seem to think that there's some real teeth behind this. Also, well, I'll bring that up here in just a minute. I got a couple other things to get through first. So at that meeting, this is the image that I wanted to get. Here you've got Baby X, Little X, as Elon calls him. There was videos of them walking in with Little X on his shoulders. Here you go. Little X will be the Alexander the Great to Elon's Philip of Macedonia. Look at that image. Imagine what this kid is experiencing. We're starting to see you got Barron and Trump. You got Lil X with Elon. Rumblings from the past reemerging. We're going to start having a hereditary governance in some capacity here very soon. But imagine being Elon Musk's son. The dude's the number one Diablo player in the world, along with doing everything. Like, he's a cyborg, along with absolutely everything that he's doing, and his son is going all over the place with him. He's flying around with him, going to these meetings, walking around with senators and congressmen. It's going to be he's got some pretty good genetics, and he's going to be a very, very wise, cultured young man. And relatedly, we finally have a Barron voice reveal.
Hello, how are you?
I'm in the business.
It's very nice to see you. Very nice.
I gave him a shout out last night.
It was short, you got to catch
I'm
it.
in the business.
It's very nice to see you. Very nice.
I gave him.
Hello, how are you?
I'm in the business.
It's very nice to see you. Very nice.
I gave him a shout out last night. The place went crazy. He didn't
Hello, how are you?
see
It's
it.
very nice. Good to see you.
You too, buddy.
Oh, you've never met?
No.
Can we make him into a fighter?
It's kind of hard to hear Trump, but Trump said he asked Dana. He said, "You guys have never met?" And he said, "No, we never met." And he goes, "Oh," he says, "You think we could?" He pointed to Barron and said, "You think we could make him into a fighter?" Yeah, he does sound exactly like Donald. He sounds like a younger Donald. If his voice was just a little bit gravelier, he would sound exactly like Donald. All right, so I got some Trump family stuff here. I'm going to get some more Barron things here in just a minute. But we have a new Trump dance clip, so I am contractually obligated to play it. Trump had the whole crowd dancing the YMCA and capped it off with the iconic Trump swing. You're going to have to look a little close because they're not, there's kind of a wide shot on most of this, but he's adding all sorts of moves to his dance. Look at that. He's got the twirly arms. And so Melania did an interview, and she was asked about his dance.
It's got to be so thoughtful, and we've heard him talk about, by the grace of God, he is alive today. What we have seen since he was elected, and over the last couple of months, is that calmness and maybe gratitude or whatever it is. But something else we've seen is he seems so kind of happy and loose, because last night at the Patriot Awards, I think we got a clip. He was doing the Trump dance, and I'm sure you've seen that evolve over the last. As you look right there, how do you describe your husband's dance moves?
Oh, this is very special and unique dance.
It is, right?
And I think a lot of people are copying it, and everybody have fun with it.
Yeah.
You know?
Which part
is this? How you dance?
No.
Which part of the Trump did you give him any tips? Like in the beginning, it was low, and then it was up high, and now there's a golf swing.
No, he's coming all on his own.
Have you ever done the Trump dance? You are Mrs. Trump.
I did not.
So I guess you're not going to start today.
You can practice.
And then part of the same interview, they asked her about Barron, and she had some very interesting comments to make here.
Everyone is so fascinated with Barron, and as people may or may not know, he helped the president-elect with his social media strategy and say, hey, you got to do some of these TikToks. You got to talk with some of these podcasts. What is the fascination with your son? We actually have a clip of a before and after of the evolution of Barron. Let's play it.
Say hi, Larry.
Hi, Larry. I like my suitcase. I have to go to school now.
Yeah.
Hello, how are you? I'm in the business. It's very nice to see you. Very nice.
What do you think the evolution of your son? He's a grown man now.
He is a grown young man. I'm very proud of him, about his knowledge, even about politics, and giving an advice to his father. He brought in so many young people. He knows his generation, because nowadays the young generation, they don't sit in front of TV anymore. They're all on the tablets, they're on the phones, and all of these podcasts and streamers. He was very vocal, and he gave an advice to his father, and was incredible how he brought in a success, because he knew exactly who his father needs to contact and to talk to.
Isn't it shocking how...
Josh Ham says she's a queen. She may love the commoners, but she doesn't pretend to be a pleb. That's part of what we love about her. She is regal. That is exactly it. Very well stated.
Fast he went from that little boy to
Yes,
the big man.
What advice do you have for other moms that are, because I'll go back and I'll look at videos
Yes.
of my daughter when she was that age, and there's like a pain in my heart because I missed those years. What's your advice for all of us that your son's in college now, you've seen him grow up, how do you handle each stage?
I think you need to be present and to be with them as much as you can. To be there as a teacher and a guidance, give them guidance. I think it's the most important, because years goes by so fast. We just don't imagine. It's like I see the clip that you just showed. I feel like it was like a few months ago.
Right.
But the time goes so fast.
But
Mothers, you need to be present. You need to spend lots of time with them. Give them guidance. This is the message coming from the incoming First Lady. Politically Catholic says, yep, totally. She's not one of us. She's our better. Yeah, this is aristocracy. The Trumps are aristocrats. They are American aristocrats. And it's kind of funny that it takes I don't even want to say Eastern European anymore, just because I think that's conceding too much. But, colloquially, Eastern European, it takes an Eastern European woman to remind Americans what aristocracy is. This is a story I'd mentioned here on the show that I saw on Tucker's Art of the Surge. And someone Amuse here tweeted it out, and I thought, well, hey, perfect. Now I can actually just play it for you guys. So this is Lynn Patton. She is a senior advisor to Trump and has been, I think, like since 2015. She's been with him from the very beginning. And she tells a story here about her background with the Trump family.
You've been with the Trump family longer than anyone.
So I think it's going on 16 years. And that's what makes it interesting is I've seen the family and how people treated them before politics and after. 16 years, started off running Eric Trump's charity for St. Jude, which he's raised over $40 million for at this point.
Look at the children that he raised. They're all accomplished, well-educated. He laughs, I think, and defers and says, oh, you know, my wife did that. But I think the president's got something to do with it.
He's raised 5 of the best kids I've ever known and had the honor to call friends.
All of his children are there for him. Every single one of them.
I always say it's not hyperbole. They truly saved my life. I relapsed with cocaine in 2012, I believe. I had already been working for them for about 4 or 5 years. You know, very high pressure job working for the largest real estate, company in the world at the time. When I relapsed, Eric Trump called me into his office, confronted me about my drug use. As I'm basically lying to his face, I'm fidgeting and I look up and he's got tears in his eyes. And that's when I just lost it. I started crying like a baby and I was like, you're right. And he's like, Lynn, you're better than this. We want you to get the help that you need. Laura Trump was on the phone, speakerphone. His brother and sister later, supported me in my endeavor, and I got some outpatient assistance. And then when their father still wanted me to work in Washington, I was just floored because they gave me another chance. And I don't think people see that side of this family enough. They were born and bred in this lifestyle, and they live, breathe, and eat it. But they're willing to walk away from all of that for this great country.
Please welcome to the stage Eric Trump and RNC co-chair Lavrov Trump.
I thought that was a really cool story when I heard it, so I'm glad he tweeted it out. All right. Well, I was yesterday evening. I was busy in a business meeting, and suddenly my phone started blowing up. I was getting all these notifications. I looked, and they're all from Twitter. A whole bunch of people were tagging me in something. And so I opened it up, and lo and behold, my president tweeted the phrase PayPal Mafia. Trump announced that he is appointing David Sachs to be the White House AI and crypto czar. It was surreal. Yeah, obviously, if you guys have followed the show for the last year, I did a real big deep dive on the PayPal Mafia back in January, February. Sparked out of conversations I was having with Jason Miranchuk and branched out with Pete Quinones. And this is kind of the first when it started dawning on me that there was something happening. That this wasn't just the Trump campaign itself. This wasn't just the MAGA world, but there was new players showing up on the scene. And from there on, it's just, the day that JD Vance was announced as the vice president was just surreal. And this is almost equivalent to that. So Trump says, I'm pleased to announce that David O. Sachs will be the White House AI and crypto czar. In this important role, David will guide policy for the administration in artificial intelligence and cryptocurrency, 2 areas critical to the future of American competitiveness. David will focus on making America the clear global leader in both areas. He will safeguard free speech online and steer us away from big tech bias and censorship. He will work on a legal framework so the crypto industry has the clarity it has been asking for and can thrive in the U.S. So David Sachs is going to be guiding the crypto industry policy. It could not get better than this. David will also lead the Presidential Council of Advisors for Science and Technology. David Sachs has been an extremely successful entrepreneur and investor for 25 years, building and investing in some of the most iconic companies in Silicon Valley. He was PayPal's founding era COO, part of the legendary PayPal Mafia. David then founded enterprise software company Yammer, which was acquired by Microsoft for $1.2 billion. Subsequently, he founded Craft Ventures, a venture capital firm based in San Francisco. David is co-host of the All In podcast, the top podcast in tech, where he and his friends discuss economic, political, and social issues. David has the knowledge, business experience, intelligence, pragmatism to make America great again in these two critical technologies. Congratulations, David. The next All In podcast is going to be really interesting. So it feels very nice to be validated. I'm very optimistic about the future. One point that I wanted to make, I was going to mention it earlier, but I'll mention it here. It's very interesting to see these new positions being created. The czar. You have Tom Homan as the border czar. You have David Sachs as the White House AI and crypto czar. You have Elon and Vivek being referred to as the waste czars. It's very interesting. I don't know what there hasn't been a a White House AI and crypto czar. Like, this is a new position. And I don't know if this is a formal position, if this is an advisory position. I don't know exactly what this is, but I do think that there is a pattern I'm noticing here now where on some of these key issues that I would consider to be the top priority issues for the Trump circle, so AI and crypto, deregulation and elimination of waste, the whole Department of Government Efficiency mandate, and immigration. This term czar is being used for these positions, and the people who are going to govern that are being appointed as like not necessarily a traditional position. Like DOGE is just obviously a brand new organization, and it's a non-governmental organization. And then the border czar was like a colloquial thing that was used for Kamala Harris. They talked about her as the border czar, but then actually being announced as the border czar, and then the White House AI and crypto czar. This is kind of very... I would love to know what it's like for a Russian to look at this, to look at America as it is right now and see people being appointed in the American government as the czar of something. It'd be funny to... the White House AI and crypto Kaiser. It's the same word. Caesar, Kaiser, czar, all the same word. These are all cognates of each other. But yeah, this is extremely bullish for AI innovation, for crypto, for Bitcoin. I know that the Bitcoin maxis are going to protest about me using those two terms. Build-a-czar, yeah. Also interesting here is that David Sachs has been one of within the Trump orbit, he's been one of the most outspoken and best on the Ukraine conflict. The role of the United States over there, the absolute insanity of it. He's been calling it all out as he sees it. Been one of the best people to follow in terms of his commentary on it. Big respecter of John Mearsheimer and Jeffrey Sachs. No relationship, it's spelled differently. So obviously he's being put in this AI and crypto czar role, but that role could get pretty expansive. AI has commercial implications. It has military implications. It has it covers. You can fit a lot into that vertical. So I'll be interested to see to what extent he has influence over Ukraine policy as a part of being in this role. So speaking of Ukraine, here is the time for the clips on Tucker talking to Lavrov. First, though, here's another clip that I found of Lavrov while I was I missed this when it first happened, but while I was looking up stuff from him on Twitter, this one came up, and I had to do a little digging just to make sure this was a real, actual clip, that this wasn't some sort of AI thing. No, this is a real clip.
Russia had its own Pussy Riot moment. What do you think of Donald Trump's Pussy Riot moment?
Well, I don't know whether this would... English is not my mother tongue. I don't know whether I would be... I would sound, decent. There are so many pussies around your presidential campaign on both sides that I prefer not to comment about this.
Oh my goodness. I wasn't expecting that.
Decent.
Watch her.
There are so many pussies around your presidential campaign on both sides that I prefer
right
not
here.
to comment about this.
Oh my goodness. I wasn't expecting that.
So when I opened this up to listen to it, I haven't been as well acquainted with my Sergei Lavrov lore as I should be, apparently. But I was remembering the Putin interview, which was done, Putin spoke Russian the entire time, and then it was just overlaid with the translation. And I was, I guess, kind of expecting the same thing, more or less. But Lavrov actually speaks Russian, English, Javehi, which is an Indo-Aryan language spoken in the South Asian island country of Maldives and on Minicoy Island. He speaks French, and he speaks Sinhala, which is an Indo-Aryan language primarily spoken by the Sinhalese people of Sri Lanka. He is a polyglot, and he is a legitimate statesman. Maybe the truest statesman in the world today. You can tell by listening to him. You can tell by the way he reasons through things, and if you have a modicum of understanding of what's going on over there in the relationship between the U.S. and NATO and Russia and Ukraine and everything that's been happening there, he has a very clear-eyed perspective on it, and he's very good at delivering a message very diplomatically while making it clear what he's trying to say. So I've got several clips here. This first one, this is from Burning Bright. He says, Sergei Lavrov occupies an interesting space in the Russian story, often able to cut through noise in a way Putin's position doesn't allow him to. His opening response to Tucker is bicameral signal. So let me play this clip here, and then we'll read the rest of the tweet.
Do you believe the United States and Russia are at war with each other right now?
I wouldn't say so. And in any case, this is not what we want. We would like to have normal relations with all our neighbors, of course, but generally with all countries on earth, especially with the great country like the United States. President Putin repeatedly expressed his respect for the American people, for the American history, for the American achievements in the world, and we don't see any reason why Russia and the United States cannot cooperate for the sake of the universe.
We see no reason why Russia and the United States cannot cooperate for the sake of the universe, which you might think is a kind of an overstatement. Maybe it's a translation issue, something like that. He's not English as the first language guy. I think he's saying for the sake of the universe because the subtext of all of this is nuclear war. So continuing with this tweet from Burning Bright, he says, Lavrov is telling Westerners that while Russia effectively is at war with the U.S., describing it as a hybrid war, I have that clip here in just a minute, he draws a subtle distinction between that and the America that has Russia's respect and admiration. While anti-Russia propaganda entered the mainstream narrative circa 2016 with the advent of the Russia collusion hoax against Trump, and while it no doubt accelerated during the 2022 panic pattern as Putin moved in to liberate the Donbass by denazifying the Prussian proxy state at his borders, Russia-U.S. tensions have been seeded going back a century as the ultimate backdrop in what the deep state has long seen as the ultimate prize in terms of a great reset trigger. They wanted the last war to be actual. The one we're getting is narrative, and peace is going to be the winner. And so then one of the first things, very early in the conversation, one of the first things that Lavrov mentioned was they're talking about the relationship between Russia and the U.S., and Tucker asked him, are there back channels that you guys can communicate through? Now, this is Tucker asking a question he knows the answer to, but he's giving him an opportunity to weigh in on the subject. He said, are there back channels that there's like the public diplomacy that happens through the media and through speeches and press releases and all that sort of thing. But then, obviously, since the Cold War, there's back channels, even before that, obviously, but this is well documented during the Cold War. There's back channels between the nations. So they have their private communiques that they have with one another. For example, when, I can't remember if he mentions it in this clip, if I have a clip where he mentions it, but he talks about how Russia alerted the United States 30 minutes before the Oreshnik display of power. They told them 30 minutes ahead of time that it was coming. So they have these back channels they communicate through. So he asks him about this, and look at what Lavrov says. This is genuinely nuts.
There are also channels which are not advertised or publicized, but basically the Americans send through these channels the same message which they send publicly.
So they're using these back channels to send the exact same message that they're sending publicly. So someone might look at this and say, oh, well, the Americans or American proxies are saying lots of really crazy things in public, but it's they're probably having more calm, even-keeled, level-headed discussions on the back channels. Nope. He's like, no, they're just at the point where they're saying the exact same thing through the back channels as they are publicly. All this insane shit that they're saying in public, that's all that we're getting from them. Which is why, I would posit, Lavrov is sitting down with Tucker, and why he's doing it right now. Because it's become very evident to someone who's smarter than your average bear that the people in power in the United States government do not represent the perspective of the majority of the population, and they do not represent the perspective of the incoming regime. And they see this as an opportunity to be able to actually relate to decent, professional, competent people from the Trump orbit, but they have to get to that point. And as Tom Luongo has been detailing very well, the Russians, the Americans, really the Brits, which he also highlights very often. He speaks almost simultaneously of the US and the UK. They are the ones who are agitating, trying to goad Russia into a nuclear strike, effectively, before Trump can come into office. So I think the reason why this conversation is happening now is because Russia recognizes exactly what's happening, and they're hoping to like front run that possibility by opening up diplomatic channels publicly, because it's not possible to do it privately.
You have to stop. You have to.
These are the things that they're saying through the back channels, which is the same thing as what they're saying publicly. You have to stop. You have to
accept the way which will be based on the Ukrainian needs and Ukrainian position. They support this absolutely pointless peace formula by Zelensky, which was additioned recently by Victory Plan. They held several series of meetings, Copenhagen format, Bürgenstock, what have you, and they brag that next year, first half of next year, they will convene another conference, and they will graciously invite Russia that time, and then Russia would be presented an ultimatum. All this is seriously repeated through various confidential channels. Now we hear something different, including Zelensky's statements that we can stop now at the line of engagement, line of contact. The Ukrainian government will be admitted to NATO, but NATO guarantees at this stage would cover only the territory controlled by the government, and the rest would be subject to negotiations, but the end result of these negotiations must be total withdrawal of Russia from Russian soil, leaving Russian people to the Nazist regime, which exterminated all the rights of the Russian and Russian-speaking citizens of their own country.
So the terms that are being offered are just plainly, obviously a complete non-starter for the Russians. And what he's highlighting here is that the people that they are negotiating with in public, like you might think, okay, well, it's just the retarded people who are saying stupid stuff in public, but the competent people are behind the scenes who actually understand how nation states relate to one another, how power politics is done, that you can't just bluster around and provoke people and piss them off and stomp all over them and completely ignore their perspective and treat them like demonic manifestations of evil and deny them the right to be sovereign over their own domain, constantly making incursions against them. Like, this is no way for people to relate at the geopolitical power politics level. It's utterly insane behavior. It's not evil even. I mean, its manifestation is evil, but it's really just retarded. It's just stupid people who don't belong in this space, who have no idea how any of this works. There's like thousands of years of human history building up precedent and establishing a baseline for how nations relate to one another. And the U.S.'s public and private policy right now to the Russians is, you're just gonna, we're gonna offer you a deal that you're obviously not, that you could never even entertain, and then we're gonna say, oh, you didn't accept the deal, so we can continue this absolute farce of a crusade. This interview here is like kind of a last ditch effort to be like, if there's anybody out there who is sane, who's actually ready to have an adult conversation about this, then we're going to have to operate somehow apart from these normal channels. Because stupid people are running the show right now, and they're saying and doing stupid things. And we would like to actually have a decent conversation here, but it's not even possible right now. Thank you, Screwed Up Texas. Member for 3 months, member of the King Pilled. He says, God bless you, Matthew. Thank you, sir. God bless you. So here's another clip here. Western plans for bases near our borders fuel tensions.
Neighbors. We are neighbors. We are neighbors. We are neighbors, and geography is very important. And
but you're also neighbors with Western Europe. You're part of it, in effect.
Well, through Ukraine, and the Western Europe wants to come to our borders. And there were plans that, were discussed almost openly to put British naval bases on the Sea of Azov. Crimea was eyed, dreaming about creating NATO base in Crimea, and so on and so forth. We have been very friendly with Finland, for example. Overnight, the Finns came back to early years of preparation for World War II, when they were best allies of Hitler, and all this neutrality, all this friendship, going to sauna together, playing hockey together, all this disappeared overnight. So maybe this was deep in their hearts, and the neutrality was burdening them, and niceties were burdening for them. I don't know.
Yeah, so there are open discussions about British naval bases on the Sea of Azov and a NATO base in Crimea. Even Finland, once a friendly neighbor, abandoned neutrality overnight, reverting to its World War II era alliance with Hitler. Perhaps neutrality and friendship were always a burden for them. He's a very, very good English speaker. Like, he's got a very good grasp of the language, very effortless, which I think is going to be pretty profound for a lot of people to, I mean, I know it's for me, and I was sort of aware of him already. I knew he was a great statesman. I never really listened to him, but even the average person can just watch this and be like, this guy seems very reasonable. He knows what he's doing. He's very crafty. He is a genuine statesman. So here's Lavrov lays out and reiterates Russia's terms for peace to Tucker Carlson. So here's their terms for peace. This is a longer clip, so I'm going to speed it up just slightly. But I think we should probably be okay because it's clipped like this.
Well, we officially are not at war. But what is going on in Ukraine is some people call it hybrid war. I would call it hybrid war as well. But it is obvious that the Ukrainians would not be able to do what they're doing with long-range modern weapons without direct participation of the American servicemen. And this is dangerous, no doubt about this. We don't want to aggravate the situation, but since ATACMS and other long-range weapons are being used against mainland Russia, as it were, we are sending signals, and we hope that the last one, a couple of weeks ago, the signal with the new weapon system called Oreshnik, was taken seriously. However, we also know that some officials in the Pentagon and in other places, including NATO, they started saying in the last few days something like, well, NATO is a defensive alliance, but sometimes you can strike first because the attack is the best defense. Some others in Stratcom, I think, Buchanan is his name, representative of Stratcom, he said something which allows for an eventuality of exchange of limited nuclear strikes. And this kind of threats are really worrying, because if they are following the logic which some Westerners have been pronouncing lately, that, well, don't believe that Russia has red lines, they announce their red lines, these red lines are being moved again and again and again, this is a very serious mistake.
So this is something that I've heard from people before, that, you know, the general public narrative, the retarded people who say, you know, well, Russia keeps moving their red line, so they actually don't have one. It's all bark and no bite. No, Russia actually has the dignity and the statesmanship to recognize what's happening here and to recognize the severity of escalating to nuclear strikes. And they're trying to avoid that at all costs. They are absolutely bending over backwards in the face of just insane people doing completely insane things that merit drastic military response over and over and over again, many times over. They've restrained themselves because it's kind of like when you have if you have like a little kid that gets really mad and they come over and they just start wailing on you, like, you're not going to draw down and blow the kid away because, oh, he's attacking me. You're like, well, he's a kid. So yeah, I got to try to defend myself, but I'm going to do things in a physical encounter with a child. I'm going to behave in certain ways and change the standards of how I respond to things differently than if it was a person, or a person as opposed to a child, if it was an adult. So Russia's policy has essentially been like, we recognize that you are not serious people. The things you're doing are very, very serious. And we're holding back as far as we can. But we can't do this forever. And the things you guys are saying is starting to get insane. Oh, NATO is a defensive alliance, but actually sometimes, you know, maybe it's good we should actually attack because attack is a form of defense. He's like, are you guys hearing yourselves? You realize that this is like actual warfare, right? This isn't just, I don't know, wargaming things on a screen. This is actual warfare with actual lives at stake. This is the big boys' domain. And you people are saying insane shit.
That's what I would like to say in response to this question. It is not us who started the war. Putin repeatedly said that we started the operation in order to end the war.
One interesting thing I saw here, and Jason, you might be able to tell me whether this is if there's anything to this or not, but he repeatedly refers to Putin as Putin, which is kind of, it's interesting to me that he would refer to him as Putin as opposed to President Putin or our president or the president or something like that. He repeatedly refers to him. It seems kind of casual for a more formal interaction like this. It's something that stood out to me.
Which Kiev regime was conducting against its own people in the parts of Donbass. And just in his latest statement, the president clearly indicated that we are ready for any eventuality, but we strongly prefer peaceful solution through negotiations on the basis of respecting legitimate security interests of Russia and on the basis of respecting the people who live in Ukraine, who still live in Ukraine being Russians, and their basic human rights, language rights, religious rights have been exterminated by series of legislation passed by the Ukrainian parliament, and they started long before the special military operation. Since 2017, legislation was passed prohibiting Russian education in Russian, prohibiting Russian media operating in Ukraine, then prohibiting Ukrainian media working in Russian language, and the latest, of course, there were also steps to cancel any cultural events in Russian. Russian books were thrown out of libraries and exterminated, and the latest was the law prohibiting canonic Orthodox Church, Ukrainian Orthodox Church. And you know, it's very interesting when people in the West say we want this conflict to be resolved on the basis of the UN Charter and respect for territorial integrity of Ukraine, Russia must withdraw. The Secretary General of the United Nations says similar things. Recently, his representative repeated that the conflict must be resolved on the basis of international law, UN Charter, General Assembly resolutions, while respecting territorial integrity of Ukraine. It's a misnomer, because if you want to respect the United Nations Charter, you have to respect it in its entirety.
He's very good. He says you guys talk a big game about how everything has to be resolved according to the UN Charter and respecting the territorial integrity of the Ukraine. And he's like, hello, what about the territorial integrity of Russia? This isn't like a menu where you just get to like pick and choose which country you respect the territorial integrity of. If we're going to have a treaty, a nation state level treaty, and you're going to talk a big game about abiding to it, then how about we abide to it? How about we operate according to those, according to that charter? We're not asking for a lot here. We're asking for you to do the very bare minimum. It's kind of insane to be in a world where you could have a serious statesman like this who has to engage in negotiations with DEI candidates, with DEI hires, just stupid people who live in a world where they think CNN is real. Jason said that Lavrov is the Russian Kissinger. He also said, in answer to what I asked, he said Stalin was often just called Stalin. The man has become the office. When you say one, you say the other. Putin equals the state. So when he says Putin, he means Russia, all of it. This is real czar stuff. Haha, yes. Okay, and then the last clip that I have here. Lavrov warns Tucker Carlson about the potential of a nuclear war. I'm going to keep this one, the video kind of cut off here because this looks like it's taken straight from YouTube. No sound. Starting over again. 34 seconds. Good grief. Okay.
I want to go back to what you said a moment ago about the introduction or the unveiling of the hypersonic weapon system that you said was a signal to the West. What signal exactly? I think many Americans are not even aware that this happened. What message were you sending by showing it to the world?
Well, the message is that you, the United States, and the allies of the United States, who also provide this long-range weapons to the Kyiv regime, they must understand that we would be ready to use any means not to allow them to succeed in what they call strategic defeat of Russia. They fight for keeping their hegemony over the world, on any country, any region, any continent. We fight for our legitimate security interests. They say, for example, 1991 borders. Lindsey Graham, who visited some time ago Zelensky for another.
Okay, real quick before he gets into this anecdote about Lindsey Graham. One thing that I got to give credit again to Tom Luongo, the way he's framed this, that the Russian perspective at this point has gotten to where their message to America is basically just stay out of this. We recognize, we can see exactly what you're doing. You're doing this whole like sneaky thing where you're like Pink Panthering around. Oh, it's not us. Look, it was Ukraine who did it. Ukraine fired those missiles. It wasn't us. We didn't do it. Oh, we gave them the weapons. We have personnel. We have Americans who are there doing it with them, but it's not us. We're not at war with you. And he's like, dude, like I can see you. There's like that meme of Shaq standing behind the tiny little tree. It's like, hello, I can see you. Like you're standing right there. So he's it's funny to see him just call this out. I see exactly what you're doing, guys. And then he's contrasting here that the allied interests here, and really the United States, and you could just tell by the way he talks about this stuff that, let's just say he is fully City of London pilled. He's like, you guys are fighting for like hegemony, and we're fighting for our legitimate national security interests. You are encroaching directly upon our territory. So this fight is personal for us. We understand that for you, you're this big faceless bureaucracy that just has goals and hegemony and all this stuff. But you think you could just keep pushing and keep pushing and keep pushing, and we're not gonna eventually push back. But we don't want to push back. Will you please stop? Will you please just stop? Stay out of it. Go tend to your country. Tend to your issues. And let us sort out our issues with our European oppositions.
Say, for example, 1991 borders. Lindsey Graham, who visited some time ago Zelensky for another talk, he bluntly, in presence of Zelensky, I think, said that Ukraine is very rich with rare earth metals, and we cannot leave this richness to the Russians. We must take it. We fight, so they fight for the regime which is ready to sell or to give to the West all the natural and human resources. We fight for the people who have been living on these lands, whose ancestors were actually developing those lands, building cities, building factories for centuries and centuries. We care about people, not about natural resources, which somebody in the United States would like to keep and to have Ukrainians just as servants.
Okay, now I'm not naive enough to think here that the natural resources in Ukraine don't factor at all into the Russians' calculations. However, this is what happens when you have a statesman going up against a bunch of retarded little fart sniffers. You have someone like Lindsey Graham come out and say, just openly say, hey, there's all kinds of resources there in Ukraine and we need to keep access to them for us. We can't let Russia have them. You don't say these kinds of things when you're dealing with in the world of power politics. You don't just come out and say that sort of thing unless you're profoundly retarded and incompetent. It's so absurdly brazen that only someone who doesn't actually have the self-awareness to recognize the implications is going to say something like that, which opens up the perfect opportunity for Russia to position themselves here that you're sitting here thinking about natural resources and look at all these people who are dying. You guys are destroying the Ukrainian population. Just funneling people into a meat grinder. And yeah, we're going to keep the meat grinder there as long as you're going to keep funneling people into it, because what else are we going to do? Like, just let you march on Moscow? So this is statesmanship right here. He's taken the moral high ground when it was offered to him.
Sitting on these natural resources. So the message which we wanted to sell by testing in real action this hypersonic system is that we will be ready to do anything to defend our legitimate interest. We hate even to think about war with the United States, which will take nuclear character. Our military doctrine says that the most important thing is to avoid a nuclear war. And it was us, by the way, who initiated in January 2022 the message, the joint statement by the leaders of the 5 permanent members of the Security Council, saying that we will do anything to avoid confrontation between us, acknowledging and respecting each other's security interests and concerns. This was our initiative. And the security interests of Russia were totally ignored when they rejected, about the same time, when they rejected the proposal to conclude a treaty on security guarantees for Russia, for Ukraine, in the context of coexistence and in the context when Ukraine would not be ever member of NATO or any other military bloc. the security interests of Russia were presented to the West, to NATO and to the United States. In December 2021, we discussed them several times, including during my meeting with Tony Blinken in Geneva in January, late January 2022, and this was rejected.
I can't even imagine being this guy and having to negotiate or meet diplomatically with frickin' Tony Blinken.
So we would certainly like to avoid any misunderstanding. And since the people, some people in Washington and some people in London,
we're talking to retarded people. We can't like communicate with them as adults. There's miscommunication all over the place apparently because you guys don't speak the language of diplomacy and international relations. You might have a degree in international relations, but that doesn't mean that you speak the language of international relations any more than having an accounting degree makes you an accountant. So we want to make sure there's no miscommunication here. We're going to give you a very clear signal of exactly what we're saying.
In Brussels, in misunderstanding. And since the people, some people in Washington and some people in London.
Since the people, and then he corrects himself, some people in Washington, London, and Brussels.
In Brussels seem to be not very capable to understand. We will send additional messages if they don't draw necessary conclusions.
The fact that we're
so some of these people don't seem to understand. We will send additional messages until they understand. It's just crazy. Like, the Russian government has been treated, the Russian people have been treated as if they're like not a serious country. Like they don't have like any respect owed to them as being a competent, developed, respectable government. They're talked about and they're treated as if they're a bunch of, they're like the Taliban or like a bunch of like goat herders or something. And here you have one of their longtime representatives demonstrating a level of statesmanship that hasn't been visible on the world stage for, I don't know, most of the time I've been alive, at least as long as I've been paying attention. There's one other, I really strongly recommend that you guys go, if you haven't listened to this interview yet, like there's so many other things that he talked about that were very interesting. I just wasn't going to sit here and replay the entire interview. Very strongly recommend you guys go listen to it. He's very enjoyable to listen to. Speaks very, like, he has the ability to, he's got an incredible recall. He can talk about all these details, all these different events and stuff in explicit detail. And he's very, very diplomatic, but he's also he knows how to say something without necessarily having to say it directly, but he very strongly gives the implication. There was one other thing I had in the back of my mind that I wanted to mention. Just escaped my brain. I can't remember now. It was something related to there was one time where he made kind of an interesting, talking about casualties in the area. He immediately drew a comparison to Israel and Gaza, which is kind of interesting. That he went there. It was one of those moments where it was very clear, like, yeah, this guy knows exactly what's going on. Yeah, no, I don't remember what it was. If I think about it, then I'll bring it up on Monday's show. That's all I've got for now, guys. So I appreciate you. Thank you for showing up this week to each of the episodes. Do me a favor and hit the like button on your way out. And go join the Kingpill Discord, kingpill.com. There's links in the description if you want to go to want to send some other send some bucks to help me pay the bills, keep me doing this. You can go to buymeacoffee.com/kingpilled. The link is in the description. There's a couple other links in there you guys should go check out. Make sure you get your Patriot Drop, get your 2025 Heritage American calendar. Support a small family business. There's a bunch of there's some links down there that you should go check out, and also go to the Kingpilled Substack, kingpilled.substack.com. Subscribe over there And that's where you can get the links to all of the stories that I cover on the Astrolabe. I stopped doing the master thread on Twitter because it was just completely like blowing out my Twitter timeline. But works better, I think, to put it on Substack, and that also gives you guys the opportunity, if you want to listen to the audio only version of this, then the uploading it on Substack automatically uploads it to all the podcatchers. So if you're listening to the audio version later on, do me a favor and leave me a 5-star rating and review. The podcast is called King Pilled. That's where the Astrolabe gets posted. That's all I got for now. So I hope you guys have a great weekend. I will see you back here Monday morning. Monday morning. Whenever I decide morning is. So until then, take it easy, and I give you Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero, and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough, and I said,